Everyone, it's Chris Faria at Tribal Gaming and Hospitality Magazine. Welcome to a very special edition of TG&H On Air, today sponsored by Tangam. Today we're chatting with James Gutierrez. James is a seasoned gaming executive with more than 35 years of experience in the casino and gaming industry. Originally from Albuquerque, New Mexico, James has been serving as the Senior Director of Table Games for the Choctaw Nation of Oklahoma for over 6 years, where he oversees table games operations across 5 resorts. James, welcome to the program.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you. Or Yakoki.
Thank you. James, can you describe your role and background at Choctaw and how your responsibilities span across the organization?
Sure. As stated prior, 35 years in the business, primarily in tribal gaming. I do have a small stint in the commercial background. I'm an old Binions guy from the 90s. So I kind of got my chops there as far as dealing, supervising, etc. And then through my journeys, I've managed to get here at the Choctaw Nation of Oklahoma. And my primary background here is I basically oversee the 5 properties. I do things such as vendor relationships, licensing, policies, procedures, game implementations, trainings, things of that nature. But really, my biggest goal is to try to just elevate table games here in the state of Oklahoma to the next level.
Talking about elevating table games, you have implemented Tangam's table games yielding solution. What were some of the key goals you were looking to achieve with the platform?
For me, I've always looked at yielding tables or pricing these games as somewhat of a challenge. You know, we've always had those traditional methods of how we price tables. It's always been, it's a concert night, raise everything up to 25. It's New Year's Eve, raise your games up. Things like that, right? So I wanted to get a little bit more granular on how we can really, truly price these games for our guests appropriately, right? Making sure that the right price point is there for the right players. And I felt the system that Tangam provides, Tim, gave us those type of components to be able to adequately price the table for the guest pretty much any day of the week. And that can go up or down, right? So we can yield the tables at a higher price point or a lower price point depending on our guests and what that bet looks like or the average action on the gaming floor.
So what changed for you and your team through the implementation process?
I would say just what changed essentially would be that approach of how you yield tape. From property to properties, everybody kind of has their own methods. You have traditional weekends, concerts, things of that nature. And then with us, we would actually maybe assign tables specifically to be $25 or $10 or whatever that might look like. And so for me, I just really wanted to challenge the team to be able to think outside the box on how they price their games, really kind of get away from the norm and look at their games from a different kind of perspective as opposed to what they're used to as far as a normal practice.
So James, when you're introducing new technology to teams, sometimes that could be sticky. How does your staff feel about the solution and the ease of using Tangam's technology?
I would say it was very challenging to start. I mean, anytime you're taking a new team and that has always practiced a certain method, and then you introduce something like Tangam's Tim, which has different pieces, like in particular, like the graph of, applied rates and things of that nature. Some of that might be a little overwhelming to some of the supervisors. It's really more about making sure that we explain the purpose, why we're doing it, and then show them the effects of what's happening too, so that they know that they're actually doing a good job and what they're actually being asked to perform is making an impact. And so I'd say, yeah, change is hard to start, but I think over time, as long as you continue to stay transparent and engage with your team, it's not as rough as it normally should be. So I think the biggest impact really was our supervisors, in particular our pit managers, are really out there now truly watching the action. I love that. So, Tim might give a recommendation to raise the limit on, let's say, something like Ultimate Texas Hold'em, one of those type of games, which, traditionally carnival games really aren't yielded that much. But in this case, it's making that recommendation. Well, the pit manager, rather than quickly responding to that recommendation, will actually go out and take a look at the players and who's playing and what they're actually betting. And so they're really more engaged in in the guests and really the action itself, which I feel like a lot of times that can get glazed over time. As you're looking at the pits every day, you start to it kind of blends into the background of the noise of the casino, right? And so I think that's really the biggest impact that I've seen is they're more engaged in the action now than they were in the past.
So if they're more engaged in the action, does that mean that this has had somewhat of an impact on your players?
It has, and I would say too that kind of change was a little difficult for them as well. And so, as far as like, you're at a property that has never really practiced yield management. And so they may not have been that accustomed to it. Now, some of our guests that are not so much local based will probably are more used to that type of thing. But I think that's really where the messaging is important to the guest and really kind of having, I guess you could call it grandfather clause and making sure that grandfather clause is fair enough to the guest where it doesn't run them off, but yet still stable enough to be able to have the impact that it needs when you change that limit on a table.
Since you're overseeing 5 properties, has this new technology impacted what you can focus on?
It has, I think for us, for here at Choctaw Nation, we're always on the go. I think we only know one speed, that's fast and metal to the pedal, so to speak. It's one project after another, and I think that knowing that our main property has a mechanism to making sure they're pricing these games appropriately to hit their strategic goals. That is definitely something I don't have to worry about or I don't lose sleep over anymore. So I think that's been pretty impactful as far as my bandwidth. And I think from a property level too, again, with the projects that we have ongoing, that gives that team a little bit more bandwidth as well.
Off camera, we were talking about Durant. I've had the pleasure of visiting your property several times. Really enjoy the property. Before we sign off, give us some updates. What's happening and what's happening in your pits besides this new technology.
Okay. So, for me, with our pits, we're always trying to push forward with different types of technology. We have ticket in, ticket out on the tables. We're getting ready to relaunch that particular software. We have the TIM piece, and then we've done a whole new reconfiguration of the pits themselves, a whole brand new footprint. We've managed to expand our Baccarat pit now to 10 games, very roomy. We now pretty much have the largest non-smoking casino or portions of non-smoking casino in the States. That's been very impressive. I think that we've seen a lot of positive reaction to that. So the refresh there has been ongoing and just been really, really impactful as far as what it's done for the property itself. And then from a brand perspective, we continue to look at expansions there as well. Our Choctaw Landing property, we've done 2 expansions there in the pits, and we've done one in Pecola, and just continue to push our brand and elevate our table games experience. So a lot of cool things in Durant. In particular, I think that non-smoking piece that we recently launched, I think that's huge.
Well, James, thank you so much for your time today. Wish you the best of luck.
Okay, well, Yakoki.
And a special thanks to Tangam for sponsoring this special TG&H On Air. And if you're not already subscribed, please go on over to tgnh.com, hit the subscribe button. You'll receive the latest research, articles on best practices, webinars, and live events. We'll see you at another TG&H On Air.